Good morning, everybody. Let's go ahead and get the meeting started. This is the March 18th meeting of LAFCo, and we're going to call the meeting to order, and we'll start with the flag salute. Please join us. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, great. Thank you very much. All right, can we have a roll call, please?
Yes. Do we have Commissioner Nicolini?
Absent.
Commissioner Benzanelli?
Here.
Commissioner White? Absent. Commissioner Kelly?
Present.
Commissioner Weinrib?
Here.
Commissioner Bushnell?
Good morning.
And Chair Madrone?
Present.
Alternate Commissioner Garnes? Absent. Alternate Commissioner Couch?
Here.
Good morning. You will be seated as a voting member today. Alternate Commissioner Johnson? Here. Great. And then alternate Commissioner Wilson. All right, we have quorum.
And is he also a voting member today?
He is not.
Okay,
No.
so we just needed 7, or
Need 4.
You need 4.
need 4. And what are the rules around when an alternate's able to vote?
That's just for their appointing authority.
Got you.
Yes,
Okay, great. Thank you for that clarification.
of course.
Okay, so we're going to jump right in with public comment. Item number 4. Members of the public may address the commission concerning non-agenda items during this time. Please note that the commission is not permitted to discuss or take action on items not on the agenda. Anybody here in the audience today wish to make public comment? Seeing none here in the audience, is there anybody online? None online, okay. All right, great. So next we'll go to item 5, the consent calendar. All matters on the consent calendar are considered routine and may be approved by a single motion. With concurrence of the chair, the commissioners may request that an item be removed for discussion and considered separately. Does any commissioner wish to remove any item from consent, which there is only one, and that is the January 21st regular meeting minutes? Seeing no one wanting to remove any item, and I don't think we need to take public comment on this necessarily. No, okay. Great. Well, can we get a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar.
Second.
Great. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Great. Thank you very much. Okay, and item number 6, public hearing items. Members of the public may address the commission on scheduled public hearing items. The chair may regulate the order of presentations and may limit the time allocated for each speaker. We only have one item, so nothing to regulate, and we'll provide 3 minutes for each speaker that wants to comment. And the item is the proposed budget and work plan for fiscal year 26-27, and I believe that our executive officer is going to present this for us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I'll go over the proposed budget and the primary differences from last year. And the principal operating revenues come from our member agencies. So the county, special districts, and cities pay a third of the LAFCo operating budget. And with the cities and the special districts being apportioned by the county auditor in a formula that collects more from the larger districts and the larger cities and less from the smaller ones. With regard to, and then our applications, any applications we receive are full cost recovery. So you'll see in the packet that application expenses and revenues are cancel each other out. They're the same. And then our other principal operating expenses is for our administrative staffing services, so EO and clerk services. We're proposing a 2.5% increase in that line item. For municipal service reviews, let's see really quick. We are proposing No increase to municipal service reviews this year. Going to keep that. Application processing, I spoke to that before, full cost recovery, and that expense category, it zeroes out with the revenue line item. Special studies, we are under contract with Matrix Consulting Services for the Northern Coastal Fire Services study. We budgeted for that this current fiscal year. We anticipate a portion of, they've gotten started. I anticipate invoices starting to come in this month and through the end of the fiscal year. So I've budgeted $36,500 for next fiscal year, and expecting that around $20,000 would be billed in this fiscal year. So I reduced that category. And that special study should be completed next fiscal year. So it should be something that we see this line item probably zero out after next fiscal year. And then we have website services. I don't think there's any change to that. Communications, we're increasing that to cover the Google Workspace costs, and that's for our emails. We have 4 users, $8.40 per user per month, and so that calculates the total costs of $400 per year. And so that is an increase from the prior year. And that's one of our larger, it's a 66.7% increase from the prior year, but it is still a smaller total cost compared to other expense categories. And then we have the conference registration and travel expenses. We're budgeting for that this year. The annual conference in October will be in Sacramento, so that's great and closer for our commission. And so we're budgeting for 2 commissioners to attend that. With that, I am available to answer any questions about any of the expense line items or revenue categories. We have the total increase to member agencies. It's about a 3.3% increase for city, county, and special districts to fund the proposed budget this year. And we have our proposed work plan included in the packet. We're going to continue with our service reviews. We've made really good progress this year, and we'll have a staff report later in the packet regarding the status of service reviews, but we're making good progress and continuing those. We've done a lot with applications and anticipate that ongoing into the new year, and just providing the technical assistance and the planning support for our fire services and the pre-application support for agencies. And with that, we have a resolution, 2603, as an attachment that would adopt the proposed budget and direct staff to distribute the proposed budget to the city, special districts, and the county, and then schedule the final budget hearing for the May 20th LAFCo meeting.
Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Any commissioners have any questions on the proposed budget and work plan? Seeing none, we'll open it up for public comment. Anybody in the room have any comments on this item? Seeing none, anybody online? None there as well. I had one quick question.
Mm-hmm.
The special studies, that's the matrix study for fire. Is that related to the issue of the exemption of timber companies? That's a very separate thing.
No, that's very separate. And so
Okay.
I do have legislative advocacy as a line item.
Right
The
under
commission,
Yeah.
this fiscal year, the commission amended the 25-26 budget and included $5,000, and that came that was funded from our reserves. And so you'll see that under the center column, the $5,000 that is funding the legislative advocacy for the commercial timberlands. I reduced that to 2,500 this proposed fiscal year. And my thought there is I've taken it more or less where I can, and it needs to be picked up by somebody, and likely it's going to be like Cal Chiefs or the California Fire Chiefs Association. They know about it. I think they're going to be taking that on. But where I want to continue is just general support. And also there's a Cal LAFCo legislative committee that I sit on. So I'm just seeing more coordination on the legislative, just legislative items in general. So I included the 2,500, and that's not going to be pulled from reserves. That's going to be budgeted from here on out.
Okay, great. Thanks for that update.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, Assemblyman Rogers did not submit a bill related to this, even though you guys did great work along with Commissioner Benzanelli to try and get a legislative language together and all that kind of stuff. But then they only can submit so many bills each session, so they're limited and they have to weigh all the pieces. I had a conversation with Senator Allen this last week at a conference I was at. He was the author of Proposition 4. So he has some pretty good weight in the legislature, and he was very interested in the topic. Perhaps we can talk more about maybe following up with.
Yeah, that sounds good. And also,
staff.
as part of the status of current and future proposals, that agenda item, I have that kind of summary of where we're at, so we can pick
Great.
this back up on that.
We'll leave the rest of that to then.
Perfect.
Thank you very much for that. Any final questions, discussions? Otherwise, I'm looking for a motion.
I'll make a motion to accept draft resolution number 26-03, adopting a proposed budget for fiscal year 26-27 and bringing it back to the May meeting for final.
Great. And in a second.
I'll second
Okay.
the motion.
Great. Thank you very much. Do I need a roll call here, or is
Yes, please.
yes? Okay. Roll call, please.
All right, let's go ahead and have Commissioner Kelly,
Aye.
Commissioner Bushnell,
Yes.
Commissioner Benzanelli,
Aye.
Commissioner Weinrib,
Yes.
alternate Commissioner Couch,
Yes.
and Chair Majone.
Yes.
All right, motion carries.
Great. Thank you, everyone. Okay, our next item is business items, number 7. And this one is, we just have one item, item A. City of Trinidad requests for authorization to extend water service outside the city boundaries to the couple of APN numbers that are here on Mill Creek Lane and Quarry Road. And so I believe, again, our executive officer is going to do a presentation.
All right, so this is a outside agency services request to extend water services to 2 parcels within the City of Trinidad's water service area. And one is on Quarry Road and one is on Mill Creek Lane. And so information regarding the 2 properties, these are both have developed single-family residences developed on the parcels. Both have existing wells and or on-site water services, let's say, and then are requesting services and to be connected to the city. And there's a existing water line that serves this water service area of the city, and or adjacent to the city, and would be able to connect to the main, and then provide the connection to each residence through a lateral. So existing infrastructure in place. We've been coordinating, staff's been coordinating with the city and the property owners for some time, and discussed, the connection of these 2 parcels, and also, the real opportunity to annex this area, since largely the property owners in this sub area of water service area, I think it's B1, it's hard. My packet isn't colored, so the sub areas aren't coming up. But on packet page 26, you'll see the Mill Creek and Quarry Road sub area, and the majority of the parcels that are within this area are served city water. And so the city's been looking at, capacity to provide services to these two parcels. So that was important for them. And you'll see engineering, GHD did a water system analysis specific to these two parcels to ensure that the city has capacity to serve these two. And then the city, when thinking about annexation, they'll be looking more broadly at the remaining parcels that are not served or that could be developed, and what the capacity availability is for this sub area. The city has included two will serve letters, which is attachment A, and information regarding in that is agreements between the city and the property owners to support annexation exploration for this area. And so this is more or less included as proposed in the will serve letters as conditions of approval for LAFCo's, if the commission approves the water extensions today to the two parcels. In the resolution and summarized in the staff report are a series of conditions of approval. And those include the city and the property owners entering into and record a covenant and agreement, which is standard LAFCo condition for these out-of-agency service agreements, and that would be recorded on the parcel so it runs with the land. And it also says that the property owners will not protest any annexation in the future. And so that's really important to support the eventual annexation. And so the owners would be consenting to annexation and waive their right to protest annexation. And in the future, water service would be extended only to the legally permitted structures on the property. Any extension or intensification of use, including but not limited to subdivision or change of use, but not including one ADU, shall constitute a new request and would need to come back before LAFCo, both to the city and to LAFCo. And so what this is stating is accessory dwelling unit would not need to come back to LAFCo. That is principally permitted. And actually more than that is more or less allowed to be processed without a conditional. I think it's more or less principally permitted, but what the city is suggesting is that more than one ADU would need to come back to the city and would need to come back to LAFCo. And water use shall be subject to current and future Trinidad rate structures. And water shall be subject to current and future city policies and regulations. Water services are provided for the benefit of the subject property only and shall not be sold, transferred, or assigned otherwise. Water provided by the city shall not be used for commercial or income producing purposes except for home occupation permitted uses. And the covenant and agreement would automatically terminate at such time as the parcels are annexed to the city of Trinidad. And so we also received, when we sent out the referral to the county departments, that once public water services is provided, the existing wells would need to be properly destroyed. And so that would be in the existing connection. One of the parcels, actually the water line goes through an adjacent property, their neighboring property, and that's how they receive their water supply through a nearby stream. But the existing well on one of the parcels would need to be destroyed. And the county was clear that they would need to obtain a water well destruction permit. And then another condition that you'll see is that the property owner shall apply for annexation within 1 year of LAFCo approval or prior to water service activation. So they would be applying to the city for annexation. The city and the property owners have agreed to the fair share of costs for that annexation. And I believe, let's see, I think it's not to exceed $5,000. And so what the city and the property owners have agreed on is, to do the due diligence. The city is going to proceed with the planning and really assessing, even in doing outreach with the other property owners in this sub area, to really evaluate annexation and start doing the technical studies. There would also be pre-zoning. There would likely be a local coastal program amendment. I mean, there's a lot that goes into city annexation, especially because a portion of the sub area is in the coastal zone. These two parcels are not in the coastal zone, and so there's no coastal development permit that would be required for these two connections. But there would be some substantial planning for annexation. And so the city has commitment from the two property owners to support their fair share of those costs. If it doesn't move forward, the city would reimburse those any remaining fees within 3 years, I believe is what is agreed upon. And so that agreement between the city and the property owner is summarized and included as a condition of approval as well. With that, we have Resolution 2604 as an attachment, authorizing the City of Trinidad to extend water services to the Mill Creek Lane and Quarry Road parcels, subject to Government Code Section 56133 and subject to the recommended conditions. And I'm available for any questions.
Great, thank you very much. Any commissioners with questions?
And sorry, one more thing. We did receive a neighboring letter of support for the out-of-agency connections, and that came in after the packet was distributed, and you all have printed versions.
Great, and I've got Supervisor Commissioner Bushnell and then Commissioner Benzanelli, and we'll see there may be other folks in the queue as well, Weinreb and others, I'm sure. Mayor Kelly. Yeah, okay. Commissioner Bushnell.
Thank you. I have a couple questions. The first question is, in the past, I've heard that it's my understanding that piecemealing without annexation is something that we don't recommend. So I'm surprised to see this recommendation. I think the annexation, I think the annexation should come first and the water hookup should come second. Secondly, if this moves forward, with the county saying that the wells should be destroyed, I don't also agree with that. The wells, can they be converted to ag wells and be able to be used such as for lawns or gardens or whatever? I think that there could be another use. It's if those wells are permitted, they can switch uses, and I think it's a waste to have water available and to destroy it when possibly we could use it for something else. And is that something that we can talk to the county about? So the first question is that annexation. I'm a little uncomfortable with that.
Yeah, I can speak to the annexation more. So I know for at least one property, and we do have both property owners. We have one in person and one online that can speak to their interest in being connected at this time versus waiting for possible annexation in the future. I think it is a timing issue. I think for one property owner, there's a decision of needing to invest in really improving their on-site system or paying their fair share and funding the costs of the LAFCo annexation or application for this out of agency, as well as their fair share for the annexation planning. And hoping to get connected instead of investing. I mean, you have to think about their connection fees and just the cost to go through the process. I think that's the difficult decision of like, do you invest in your on-site system, and then it's going to be really difficult to pay the connection fees for annexation later on.
Thank you for that. But in the past, has LAFCo denied connections for similar scenarios of out of annexation? And what would be the basis of that? And in conversations with you in past years, there's a process, which this is out of process. And I know it sounds like it's in the sphere of influence.
It's in the sphere of
So
influence.
is that something that we would commonly do, is allow for hookups in the sphere of influence? Have we denied before based on what?
We have not denied before, but there has been, this commission has very clearly stated we prefer annexation, and we really don't want to see out of agency extensions unless there's a real health and safety issue, and whether there's a real need to connect and not pursue annexation. So in anticipation of annexation is in the code. And so the Government Code 56133 says very clearly that the Commission may approve extensions within the sphere of influence in anticipation of annexation, or outside of the sphere of influence because of a health and safety issue. And so I think the commission still is like, there needs to be a health and safety, typically a health and safety reason to really expedite connection, even if it's in this sphere. But our policy does state that if it's within the sphere, it meets the requirements for that requirement, state requirement, to be consistent. And so and what staff worked really closely with the property owners and the city to really clarify, like, we need to see anticipation of annexation. And so that's where the city worked really closely with the property owners and are requiring that an annexation application be applied for within 1 year. And that's a standard condition for other LAFCos approving similar out of agency requests that are within spheres that annexation be applied for within 1 year, and that meets the anticipation of annexation. Doesn't mean that it will happen though, and so that's still the unknown. I feel though that the city has been looking at this area for some time regarding annexation, just because of the number of connections. And it's within the broader water services area. This sub area is the closest to the city, and so they're really, I think, thinking about their water service area. I don't think they have to really look at what they can. They have to make sure that they are serving their residents and all of these existing connections. And, there's by annexing the whole sub area, there's a lot of undeveloped that would need capacity would be a big question. So I think they're really looking at this neighborhood and this sub area that is directly adjacent to the city for possible annexation.
Thank you for that. And then can you answer the question about the wells?
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea, and I can reach out to the county on that, the Division of Environmental Health, about that. What we could do is, if the commission does approve this today, that we could amend this condition to have a little bit more flexibility there.
It's common for people that have larger areas that they don't want to run ag water through their meter, if it's not potable water, and so it's very common. It's done a lot in to conserve money. And I think that it would be beneficial if the property owner wants to keep that well for that source, that they be allowed to.
Okay.
I had a comment on that. So
Yeah, I was,
my years as a water operator, I would expect rather than well destruction that they be required to put a backflow protection device on their line, and that's the standard way to deal with a property that has a well on it. And I don't know why the county didn't say that. That's
Okay.
kind of crazy.
yeah, and as David said, McKinneyville actually has a system that they use to allow wells to continue to exist. I think they pay a $10 a month fee and have a backflow preventer. So there are great examples, as was mentioned by Commissioner Bushnell as well. So
The city of Arcata, serves all of Jacoby Creek, and pretty much every house has a well, and every house has a backflow protection device, and it's just a standard way of dealing with a problem.
Okay.
great, thank you for that. And then I'm gonna, you want one
I
final
do
comment? Go
on
ahead.
that same. So on that same note, I know that annexation requires, with annexation language, it does often say that they'll go away from their alternate. If they have a well, but if this is approved today, it's not an annexation. So that would be something that you could say to the county, like with annexation language, it does state that with annexation that you'll go away from your surface water or well water and annex in, but that is not the case if this is approved today.
Okay.
Sure. Okay.
Good discussion, and Commissioner Benzanelli and then Weinreb.
On the same, I actually have the same two comments that Commissioner Bushnell had. However, on the well one, I think it's important to preserve existing sources of non-treated water for agriculture or whatever purpose. If there's a reason, you could have an agreement that says pumps are removed. And of course, if you ever have city water and well water, you should always be backflow prevented. But I think an agreement and removal of a pump, if there's an actual reason why they would prefer to sell city water, maybe, that would be adequate. But destroying existing infrastructure seems to be short-sighted, and I would like to see that removed.
Okay, great. And Commissioner Weinreb.
Yeah, I agree with both of the previous speakers. Personally, when I purchased my property, there was a well on it that was not connected to any kind of municipal system. And when I got into the West Haven Community Services District, they made me put a backflow permit on my existing well, which I refused to destroy. And it seems like asking people to destroy a water well in a community where they're already wondering about how much water are they going to be able to accumulate and store. This has been a kind of an ongoing issue in Trinidad, and there's been a lot of movement. I think Commissioner, I'm getting this horrible mental block here, but there's Commissioner Madrone has been active in trying to get distributed water storage throughout the city, and therefore it seems doubly silly to want these people to destroy their water well. The other is a more general comment. I've been hearing from people, and not just in the Trinidad area, but in other areas too. Why would I want to be annexed to a city? What benefits would that give me? It seems to me, and I'm just quoting other people, that it would be more rules for me to follow, maybe more taxes for me to pay, more people telling me what to do. What are the real advantages of being annexed?
Okay, thank you for that comment. And anybody else? And I know that Commissioner Kelly would like to also speak, so please.
Yes, so as the mayor of Trinidad and someone who's been involved in this for the last 2 years, I do want to say that I am supportive of these two water hookups, and fundamentally I do see this as a public health and safety issue for both of these residents. One of them has a failing well, and the other one is literally like running a hose and generator across a property to a creek because their system's completely down. So if you look at the figure in attachment C, you'll see that almost everybody on Mill Creek and Quarry Road do consistently have, or currently, have city water. And we have proven capacity for these two hookups. That's not an issue. We're not going to expand the footprint. It's existing infrastructure. We got a pipe going down the road right now. There's no growth or development pressure other than the state mandated ADU, and so far those residents haven't expressed an interest in that. I think it's fully aligned with long-term planning. We are certainly looking at, options for annexation, but it's not an annexation decision today. I think this is, from an annexation perspective, I see that as it's a multi-year planning effort with a lot of boxes to check. And the reasons why some people would want to annex and the reasons why they would not are going to come into play. And if the public resists it, then I don't think either LAFCo or the city of Trinidad can mandate it. It's a policy that LAFCo has, not a state law, as I understand it. So I would say that these two folks have waited for quite some time to get a water hookup, and I'm 100% supportive. They need this, and I think it's consistent with the longer term strategy. So that's all I have.
Great, thank you. Anybody else, any other questions, comments before I add my little 2 cents in? Seeing none, and then we'll go to public comment as well. Appreciate you being here today. And the other landowner is on the line, you said, so that's great to have them here today. So I do generally agree that it does seem to me to be a little bit of the cart before the horse, in that annexation really ought to happen first. But I also understand the concerns of the landowners. I actually met, in fair disclosure, with the Pierces and walked their system and offered them advice, not as a LAFCo member, not as a board of supervisor, but as a water system specialist. I'm a subject matter expert in that particular arena, and I've done a lot of development of water supplies in the area. The health and safety issue is a big one. The Pierces water supply, as shown to me by the Pierces, does have their water line and their electric line on the surface, and code says they have to be buried. But I will tell you that about 90% of the private water systems in Humboldt County have electric lines and water lines on the surface. It's actually somewhat rare to find them to meet code and be buried. And so while that doesn't meet code, I didn't observe it to be a significant health and safety issue per se, just from a perspective of looking at systems all over Humboldt County. They are tapping, they had a well, and as is well documented in the staff report, that well had some issues, and the upper casing no longer has a sanitary containment, whatever, and it was failing in the late summer, early fall to provide enough water, which is true of many of the wells in the West Haven area. They start going dry, especially during series of drought years like we had in the teens. And that's a part of why I've continued to say adding more storage is a piece of that. That's one way to actually deal with that problem, which lasts for a month or two maybe. It's not like it's year round. And having 5,000 or 10,000 gallons of storage, which they actually have storage. I think you have like 5,000 gallons or something like that. But that can actually help people get through that dry period. So there are lots of different ways to approach this issue of sanitation, of health and safety, and of having water during the dry period of the year, which is like August to early October. And then even without rains, the springs come back up in early October because the days get shorter and the trees are evapotranspirating less, and the springs come back up and the wells come up. So there are lots of ways to solve these issues. But I mean, for me, it does seem backwards in regards to not doing annexation first. But again, I do sympathize with the landowners' needs for water and all that. I have talked to a number of property owners on Quarry and on Mill Creek Lane, and they are not. The ones I've talked to are not excited about annexation. They just simply are not. And yet it's being presented as this there's this issue that for us as LAFCo commissioners, we're supposed to look at this as if there is this anticipation of annexation, which is talked about by our executive officer as well as in the report. And yet I'm not seeing that in that community. I'm not seeing that they are anticipating supporting annexation because, as was mentioned, what are the benefits? What are the costs? and those kinds of things. I mean, if the city did annex this, would they suddenly be responsible for what is a gravel road to pave it, for instance? You know, I mean, there's concerns both for the city and its costs as well as the residents themselves. But of course, Mayor Kelly is here today. She's speaking for the city. I appreciate that. I will say that, you know, the analysis of available water didn't consider the ADUs. It only considered these single-family residences. The existing engineering analyses in the city of Trinidad has looked at this issue of ADUs in a broad way within the service area of the city. And they have evaluated that they have some excess capacity most of the year. But during the dry time of the year, just like for the private landowner, the city in the drought years did start approaching the limits of the water in Lufanolts Creek. It doesn't go dry, never has, never documented to go dry, but you can start approaching these limits where the city has to back off on how much water they take out of the system. They were close to that. I think it was in 2019 during the drought years, but never quite triggered that point of limited water. And again, that's why I keep suggesting that distributed storage throughout the city and outside the city is a piece of that solution and puzzle. But in this analysis of adding these two residences, it just looked at what would it be to add the two residents in terms of supply availability. It didn't look at double that amount if you add an ADU to each parcel. It's really, so there's an error, I think, in that analysis. But I don't think it would change the outcome by just looking at 4 rather than 2. But I just wanted to point out that I think if we're going to do these kinds of analyses in the future, I would recommend that we really look at the build out, because that's what we're supposed to be doing. It's not just the halfway point, but what would the build out be? This is not going to be cheap for the residences, and I know the Pierces understood this. We talked a lot about the options of improving their existing system versus doing this approach. We're looking, you know, the applicants are looking at $30,000 plus for the costs that are associated with all this. That's not a small amount of money. You could easily bury the lines and improve the tap at the creek for the Pierces for a whole lot less than $30,000, for like $15,000 or so. My estimate is that you could deal with the health and safety concern there and improve the tap at Mill Creek and add more storage. But again, that's not my decision. That's a landowner decision, I believe, for them in terms of what they're willing to do. And as I understood it, talking with the persons, the security of having that water with the city was a big factor versus dealing with a creek that starts going low in the late summer and things like that. But you know, those are interesting evaluations that happened there in terms of that. I mean, I think the biggest issue for me is this issue of when does annexation happen, and if it's really not going to happen, why are we acting like it's anticipated to occur? That's a little bit troublesome for me in the way the report's presented and the way we're proceeding with this. So I'm having a hard time getting over that part. There was one other error in the report, too. It said in the letter from Fish Drilling for the Pierces, it says connect to the West Haven Community Service District, and I believe they meant to. There was an error in their report. I believe it meant connect to the city of Trinidad because the line's right there. So again, not a substantial concern, just a minor error in the report. So I did read all this. I spent quite a bit of time in the neighborhood talking with landowners. I did not meet with the Kavanaughs. This came up later. And there were some other parcels nearby that are vacant that had interest in connecting as well up there, but aren't part of our decision here today. So I'll stop there and go back to the commissioners. And I've got Commissioner Bushnell and then Commissioner Kelly with more comments.
Thank you. My concern as well without annexation is what would stop, with this precedent, what would stop other landowners in that area to be connected without annexation, and what basis would LAFCo have if we're going to connect two folks without annexation and annexation doesn't happen, which also has to be okay with the community, correct? So if they say no, then what would prevent a piecemeal job throughout the sphere of influence in that area?
Great question. So the city does have policies for connections as well, and they are strict, just like LAFCo, in that they're not supporting annexation unless, especially to there's undeveloped parcels. And this area, I believe, these are the last two homes. And so the remaining parcels are undeveloped, and so there's not support by the city or LAFCO to support development related extension requests as well. And then within their overall water service area, that's the same. And the city's done the analysis of their overall water service area, and what parcels are undeveloped, what parcels are connected, and then what parcels and I think in the capacity analyses that Supervisor or Chair Madrone had specified regarding, ADUs within their overall service area and build out, and what their water system could support.
So an additional question on that line is there are obviously other wells or other water sources in the sphere of influence that are not annexed in, and if those water systems begin to fail and they request, like these two landowners are, for health and safety reasons, that now we don't have water, where does that stop without annexation? Because there are other areas of the sphere of influence there that have developed homes with their own water system, and if we're going to do it for two, are we bound to do it for the rest if annexation doesn't happen? Which is probably where you get into trouble when you don't annex first.
Yeah, and I mean, this is the challenging aspect of out of agency connections that happen over time. Most of these connections happen before 2001 and the state requirement for LAFCo to authorize these types of out of agency service extensions. And so we have, especially with the city of Trinidad and the city of Blue Lake, hundreds of connections outside of the city. Mm-hmm. And so this commission has this commission has even received similar out of agency requests for the city of Blue Lake and their water service area. And typically it's from landowners that they know that a water line goes right in front of their house. They have an issue where they have this decision of investing in their system, either because of a health and safety issue, they have a well or even a septic system failure, and a desire to connect because they'd rather invest that same money into a water connection charge and be done with their on-site systems. And so it is a desire, and it is a policy issue for LAFCo. I mean, we are going to continue to see one-off requests within these service areas, and that's why we continue to remind the cities and tell the cities, you need to address these water service areas and we need to get these annexed once and for all. But the challenge is once the extensions have been provided without the consent agreements, so all of these ones that were provided prior to 2001 do not have written consents and consent to consent for annexation. They don't have these consent for annexations recorded with the parcels. And so the cities have no leverage. Property owners can protest annexation. They can say, we're happy being unincorporated but have city water. And so that's the challenge. And so for cities to proceed with annexation, they have to do all of the planning associated with that. And with the city of Trinidad, it's going to be a local coastal program amendment. There's a process, and looking at their capacity, determining what build out would look like for those remaining undeveloped parcels within this sub area. And then doing substantial outreach to try to determine whether there would be support for annexation or whether there's any they would have to determine whether or not there's going to be protests. Why go through an annexation process and pay the LAFCo fees and go down this road when property owners can just protest and not be and ultimately terminate the LAFCO proceedings. So there is a lot, but what we do want is this commitment to fully do the due diligence to look at annexation, because it is time, especially in this sub area. Like Commissioner Kelly said, all of the developed parcels are connected, and apart from these two, the water line exists. There has been the analysis, both citywide and then the additional analysis by GHG. There's capacity. And so it really is a policy decision, and I know it's a hard one, and it is something that, what happens with the next property owner. And we get these every other year. We'll receive a request from a property owner, whether it's Trinidad or whether it's Blue Lake. We will continue to see these. And so, but it is a challenging decision, I think, for the commission, because again, it's the water line goes right in front of their houses, or water mains, and responding to the desire of the property owners. So,
All right, thank you for that.
I
Any
do want to
final-
say too,
Go
with
ahead.
regard to the Pierce's property, yes, they could dig and put the electrical and do those improvements, but the thing is that it goes through an adjacent property and they don't have easements in agreement with that adjacent property owner, and the adjacent property owner very much desires not to have that infrastructure and to support that their neighboring water service. So I think that's the other challenge with the Pierces, is they just don't really have the support of their neighbor to continue. Their neighbor is encouraging them to connect to the city so that there can be the infrastructure can be removed.
That was not the way it was presented to me in the site visit, but we've got the property owner here to
So it
speak to
seemed,
that.
I mean, just based on the calls I've had, that neighbor was in the call wanting this to happen and request, supporting this annexation. It seemed like to me, but they are not here today.
Well, it's great that the property owner, the Pierces, are here and represented, so, yeah.
Can I just make one quick
Yeah,
comment
please.
before? So that's my understanding as well. I think the executive officer covered the point I was going to make, is that I've spoken to that landowner. She wants to sell her property. She doesn't want to offer an easement.
Yeah.
I would also say that annexation is a formal process that we have to go through. And while I appreciate the fact that there have been discussions, Supervisor Madrone has had, or Commissioner Madrone, I have as well. And I think we need to present to the public the pros and cons of annexation and let them decide. And to your point, Supervisor Madrone, they might decide not to do that. And that, we can't force it, as I understand it, for the reasons the executive officer just mentioned. So with that, I think I'll hold my comments and let the members of the public speak now.
I agree, yeah, okay. I think that's perfect. Let's go ahead and offer the members of the public opportunity to comment, in particular landowners are here. And I am going to use my discretion to allow a little more than 3 minutes if that's needed. We'll try and keep it concise and to the point, but we don't have an abundance of people here ready to speak, but welcome, Ms. Pierce.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everybody.
Microphone, you got to press the little button at the bottom down there.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hi, I know some of you. Hi, Cheryl. Hi, Steve. It's good to see you. I'm Jennifer Pierce. My husband and Andy and I have lived at Mill Creek Lane, 469 Mill Creek Lane, since we bought the property in 1999. And early on, we were interested in getting Trinidad water, and at that time, there was a waiting list, which we got on. We waited about 5 or 6 years. They called us and said, well, would you like to have your property hooked up? And at that time, we had a young family and no extra money to cover the costs. So we declined. And unfortunately, then it got put in, LAFCo got developed, and we were no longer able to deal directly with the city. We had to now go through LAFCo as well. So in 2019, we requested an application for city water, and we were told that there needed to be some feasibility studies done as far as water pressure, and it was found to be sufficient. And then in 2020, we pursued this, and there was a draft of administrative water connection policy and criteria was developed. And at that time, there was some structure changes within City of Trinidad. They had to hire a consultant to do some of their level 3 water treatment things and drain the account of their reserve. And so this was sat on for 3 years by the city. So we reached out to LAFCo ourselves in 2023, and Crystal Haney sent us back to the City of Trinidad saying that you've been waiting patiently, but you need to deal with the city. So at that point, we were struggling to get enough water. In 2023, we had fish drilling come out and take a look at our well again, hoping that maybe we could have that fixed. It is a very shallow well and cannot be dug deeper, and it relies on basically runoff from water that comes down the hill through the Mill Creek Quarry area. So in 2024, we were invoiced for more money from the city, and we paid it, and had many more discussions with Trevor Parker and with Gabe. Steve came out and took a look at our property. We've been trying to figure out how to get this water for a long time. And so the history has been that we live on the Guay Tract parcel, and we're one of the only houses that doesn't have water service. There's a pipe that goes directly up our road, and the fire hydrant is literally 15 feet away from our front door. And what happened is when the original owners made that house, they were the ones who developed that tract. They made the house and didn't have the money to hook up to the city when everyone else did. They had their sons dig a well. They threw a pipe down to the creek, and they said, well, we'll deal with this later. Fast forward to now, I'm dealing with it. So we do have, I feel, a significant safety issue in the sense that we're pumping directly out of the creek, and right now we don't have any filter system in place. And although that could be done, we're hesitant to put more money into a failing system. We have had times when the creek has gone underground and we haven't been able to pump because our pump just sits on top of the creek. We don't have any casings or any development at all, and our well does go dry for most of the dry months, starting usually in about April. And I understand that there are concerns about the annexation, but I feel like we've done our due diligence as far as signing off that we will not protest annexation, which is all we can do. And more than that, we've actually said we'd pay our fair share of annexation, which I've never heard of any other residents in the area paying to have studies done for annexation. So for me, that seems like we're going a little bit above and beyond in our efforts to try and have this done. And I do understand where does it stop if you're going to be giving a couple of people water connections, but I'd like to refer to your own language. LAFCo, as far as I understand, was developed just to help with concentrating urban sprawl, to make sure that people are going to be getting services when they're close to cities. And we already are. We're already developed property. There's not going to be any new development. The ADU clause is just something that we put in there just in case, like my mother, who's 86, if I want to move her onto the property and have a little trailer put there, I would want to be able to have water to her, for example. LAFCo does have the ability to offer outside service extension without having annexation, according to your bylaws. That municipal service or contract agreement could, outside of jurisdictional boundary to an individual landowner when annexation is not permissible or desired. You can do that. You can just go ahead and give this. This doesn't even have to be a conversation about annexation. However, we are willing to accept that that you would like to see this greater area be part of Trinidad, and we're willing to support that. What we would like, though, is just to be able to have Trinidad water, being that we are right there. We've been working on it for over 10 years. And I've put in hundreds of hours talking to Colette and Steve, coming to the Trinidad board meetings and trying to get this done. So I just really appreciate your time and your thought in trying to encourage us to do this. So thank you for your support. And if there's any questions, I'd love to answer them.
Yeah, great. Thank you for that. And Commissioner Bushnell has a question.
Yes.
Thank you. Hi, nice to meet you.
Hi.
I'm curious, when fish drilling came out, whether you, it doesn't sound like this well could be expanded on, but a new well could be, whether you talked to them about a new well being put on the property.
We did. They didn't see sites that looked particularly good for drilling a new well. We're on a substrate of like a clay coming off of this watershed, and all the water we have is coming straight downhill and into Mill Creek. So really we're just a runoff. We don't have any sandy bottom reservoirs or anything like that. And our well is actually on the one side of the property that could be developed for water, because the other side of our property is our septic, and we're only on an acre. So we don't have a whole lot of places that could be drilled.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it. Any other commissioner questions? So when you invited me up to see your system and we took a walk, before that, there was a thought by the neighbor, Paula, that your water line and your electric line actually went onto her property. That was one of the big concerns that was brought up. And it sounds like Mayor Kelly also had that conversation. But as observed in the field, based on the metal fence posts that have actually been pounded in along that entire property line, the water line and electric line do not go onto Paula's property. They just simply do not. They're within an area that you had told me at the time was an easement that you had from that other property owner next to Paula, that as long as you were within, I believe it was a 15-foot area of the property line, you had an easement there for that water line and that electric line. Is that not the case?
Yes, I agree with you. I think that is the case, that when you walked it, we saw that it did appear that the water line, from what we could see, was not encroaching onto Paula's property. However, we don't have a current, we haven't had it surveyed. Thank you. That's the word I'm looking for. We haven't had it currently surveyed, so I don't know for sure. I do know that when we bought the property, it said that we had it had been discussed with the previous property owners of the property parcel that's next door to Paula, that this line could go through. And that property is undeveloped. If it were developed, I don't know what would happen at that point. So it just feels like a really, just feels like an unsafe situation to have as far as relying on that for water.
And that parcel north or adjacent to Paula's as recently sold?
No.
Okay.
Not that I know of.
Okay.
No.
Okay. That was something in the staff report as well that seems inaccurate.
One of the properties had sold, but not the one
Not
that
the one
ours
that
goes.
your water and
Yes.
electric line run down.
Yeah. Right.
Well, I'm not a lawyer, but I would say that it sounds like the water line, electric line were actually put in before you bought the property.
Yes,
Is that correct?
So
It's been there for
grandfathered in.
27 years, and there's this thing called prescriptive rights and or adverse possession. And this seems like a prescriptive right in that the previous or the existing landowner had given you a right to run the water line, electric line down through there, and it's been there for more than 5 years. So that's a prescriptive easement. And so that's inaccurate in the staff report because it's stated in there that there was no right, no easement, no nothing to run that line.
Yeah, I don't
And
know. I'd have to look at our
again, I'm not an attorney, but
right, and I would have to look at our original deed.
Sure.
When I did look at it, it appeared that it was just an agreement, but I don't know. And
Yeah, well, an agreement
yeah.
actually can be a form of law, and it's
Right.
called a prescriptive right.
I understand that.
And anything over 5 years with prescription and allowance creates a prescriptive right. Whether or not you filed for it or not, the right exists. So again, and these are some inaccuracies in the report. But the point I really think everything falls on, and I think there's a lot of sympathy up here for, you won't having good, reliable water. But even if you have the city water line, you could be without water for several days or a week if their tanks drain or other things happen. That's why the distributed storage thing is so important, because, yeah, and the idea is that these commissioners have said about keeping the well, keeping, your backup systems in place, even if you connect to the city, is a really smart thing to do.
I agree. I would like to add that we do have over 6,000 gallons storage capacity, and we're increasing that. We've looked into rainwater capturement. We would have already agreed to, as part of the requirements, to get a backflow valve and have the wells, if we were not required to fill in the well, we would like to use that for agriculture, because I do have a large garden that provides food for our family. And so that is something that we continue to understand, that there's a real need for alternative water sources. And to your point of, Trinidad water could run out as well, that's true. However, the much more likely scenario is that we lose power, because that happens at least 4 or 5 times every winter. And when the power shuts off, we do not have water. So that's one of the main things for health and safety that we really feel would be important about having Trinidad water, is that even if the power's off, you can still turn on the tap and have potable water, because we do not have potable water. We buy our water in jugs from the city right now.
Yeah, no, I understand that. But of course, that's where generators come in for a lot of people in West Haven and North Trinidad, is when the electricity goes out, people are on generators to pump their water.
Sure.
So there are alternatives to all this.
Yes, we've looked into those for sure. We have, I feel like we really have tried to do our due diligence to really support ourselves. But the dream of having Trinidad water is just the ability to be able to go and turn on the tap and drink water and cook and take a shower without worrying about getting E. coli. And so thank you.
Thank you very much. Any final questions from any commissioners?
I think, do we have someone else?
We have one
for
more.
her?
Yes.
I just have it, if I could.
Please.
I want to confirm with Ryan, prescriptive rights or easements are determined by a judge, whether you think you have them or not. Is that something we should be considering here today? And I understand what you're saying, Commissioner Madrone. I just want to make sure that my lines aren't blurred when I'm making a decision.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I can't speak to the particular situation here and whether prescriptive rights exist. But as a general matter, once you've acquired a right by prescription, it's a defense to a trespass action, or you can bring an action to quote unquote perfect it, meaning a judge weighs on whether the prescriptive rights have been established. Because until then, it's a factual issue between two landowners.
Okay, thank you for that.
Yeah, thanks for that. Okay, well, thank you very much for being here. And we're going to go to our person online.
All right, so Michael Kavanaugh's online. I'll allow him to talk. He doesn't have his hand raised, but we'll see if he has anything to add.
The other property owner.
And does he have a well?
He has a well. Okay. Welcome, Michael. Are you there?
He did unmute. I don't hear him, though, so I don't know if he has the audio capability.
We're going to give you a minute or two here, Michael, to try and connect. It sounds like our executive officer has unmuted you. And
seems like I'm unmuted.
There you are. You're there. Welcome.
Hi, how are you doing?
Good.
I'm obviously away, and my concerns are pretty much all the same that the Pearsons have. I don't have the issue of the remote thing. I have a 12-foot deep shallow well that requires water softening to the nth degree, which is quite wasteful for water and energy as far as I'm concerned. Requires buying and using salt. The softener system regenerates and pushes water overboard as it's regenerating. So that's a waste of water. And I've owned the property since 1976. So we went through the first installation of the water systems that are existing there, that are hooked up to Trinidad along Mill Creek, my address is Quarry Road, but I make the corner, so one side of my property is on Mill Creek, so I'm very adjacent to the water line. I was unable to afford at the time to hook up. The only thing we could afford to do at the time was to contribute $700 to the fire hydrant that is kitty corner to my property. Um, we thought that was important. And so that was what we could do at the time. And then afterwards, in the meantime, we have checked into this hookup, which always required the full neighborhood to be annexed. At all the times we inquired and tried to make an application, and until just this recent, I think the last 4 years it's been going on at least, there was kind of a light at the end of the tunnel that said, oh, it's quite possible we could do this on individual properties, even without annexation. I'm not opposed to annexation, but I feel much like Steve mentioned that most of the neighborhood has got their water and probably don't want to go through the annexation because of the fees. So to do the whole tract seems impossible. So we also have pretty much surface water. We're also influenced by the quarry, which is 2 lots away from us, and at any time can change the geology with their dynamiting adventures, which they have made huge mistakes before. We have managed to keep water. Our water is, like I said, 12 feet deep. To get just the water tested, it won't pass. So you have to have filtering, blue lights, and like I said, the water softening, and so which requires electricity all the time, and the pump. And as far as destroying the well, when the county health inspector came out to check things out, he said, quite frankly, he said, you just isolate the well from the house, and with that backup valve, and you don't have to destroy the well. So we would still like to proceed, and we are okay with signing the document that says if annexation was to come along down the road, that we would not oppose it. So ours is a little simpler. We have a direct path to get to the main water main in the middle of Mill Creek Road there, and are willing to and really would like to keep the well for yard watering. So that's all that I really have to say about it. I'd be glad to get this process done. I'm getting older, so it's gone on pretty straight now for 5 years, 4 to 5 years on this last application process. A lot of confusion, a lot of delays. So that's really all I have to say.
Thank you, Michael, and we'll see if there's any questions from commissioners. Seeing none at this time, thank you for being here today. So we've had a good discussion. I mean, what would be the situation? In the staff report, it presents this whole issue as if it says it. There's this anticipation of annexation. And that's sort of a turning principle for us at LAFCo in regards to our ability to approve these kinds of things and not be piecemealing, as was mentioned. And I mean, even this speaker talked about he doesn't anticipate annexation actually happening because he's talked with a lot of his neighbors and people don't see the benefits versus the costs or whatever. So, I mean, if this was being presented to us today as there is no anticipation of annexation occurring, would we really even be able to approve this?
I think for purposes of meeting that requirement, the property owners applying within 1 year, to apply for annexation with the safeguards that they will be reimbursed by the city if annexation doesn't move forward. I mean, I think the condition speaks to it clearly. You know, the city shall actively pursue annexation of the subject parcels and surrounding area, including necessary studies, outreach to affected property owners, environmental review, and preparation of required pre-zoning and planning documents. They're committing to actively pursue annexation. Whether that happens, and it goes on to state that the city shall refund applicable annexation-related costs, less any city costs incurred in evaluating or preparing annexation proposal if a annexation application has not been submitted to LAFCo within 3 years. So it's the commitment, it's the actively pursuing annexation that we have been encouraging the city to do for years, and we have that commitment.
Understood. Commissioner Bushnell.
I'm assuming there's nobody else online. Is that correct?
There is nobody else online, is that correct?
No.
So there's no other
Oh,
public
wait,
comment?
actually, wait, no. There's
Okay,
not.
so there's no other public comment then. Go ahead.
I guess my question would be to you as the executive director and someone that, you know, works within LAFCo and works also within other counties. Do you have a professional opinion on this?
I think this meets the state policy with regard to Government Code 56133 and the requirement for property owners to apply within 1 year is what other LAFCOs require. And, you know, we can't force annexation, but we can require that, you know, the property owners and the city do their good faith effort to proceed with evaluating it.
Okay, thank you for that. And then one final question. Given it's the policy of this LAFCO to not piecemeal and to do annexation previous to hookups, do you think that if this was approved today, that in the future other areas, because we've talked about this in Alder Point, which is right up the road from their sphere of influence, also the water line runs right adjacent, and we've talked about, you know, those folks wanting to hook up. I mean, I think the pros are you have water. The cons are you have bigger bills, you have, or vice versa. So I understand it, but would this set precedent for future decisions with this LAFCO? And maybe accordingly so it's okay, but what are your thoughts around that?
I think in some areas, really encouraging and more or less saying annexation is your path is exactly what staff does. It's like annexation is your path. Alder Point, you know, if you want to extend to this new area that's south, we've included that area in the sphere, knowing that there's some opportunities there, but there's substantial infrastructure investments that need to happen before that. There needs to be the planning, there needs to be the coordination with the landowners, but in that situation, for those landowners to connect, it would make sense to bring them all into an annexation. You wouldn't even go the out of area. I hope that makes sense. Like, this is a unique situation, though, and that's why we're bringing this forward and have supported this annexation out of agency application, is because these two parcels are not adjacent to the city. They don't share the boundary with the city. The other property owners are already connected. There's you can't force those other property owners to annex when they already have their water service and they don't have the agreement to waive protest. So it's a unique situation, but that is why the state policy and our local policy does provide that being within a sphere of influence of the agency, and it is meets the requirement of the state, and so these parcels are within the sphere of influence, and the in anticipation of annexation is being used because that is the state requirement for being within the sphere of influence for these. So that's where we are requiring that condition for the application within 1 year.
Thank you. Final question from me. Given the language that you gave in the staff report about the county wanting the wells destroyed, I don't think it's our purview that we can request, although I think Supervisor Madrone and I can talk with them, but I don't think that we can necessarily make that determination today, but we could state that, you know, if it's possible for the county to put the backflow valves in, that they be able to disconnect from home water, but to be allowed. But or maybe it's
I was thinking for this condition, we could amend it to say, and we can work on the language. Once public water service is provided, the existing wells shall be installed with a backflow prevention device or destroyed or properly destroyed in accordance with the Humboldt County Division of Environmental Health requirements, including obtaining a water well destruction permit and destruction of the well by a licensed well driller. Would that provide enough flexibility for either or?
I would prefer not to have the language in there
at all, or we could strike the condition.
I mean, it's just
completely.
me. I won't vote for that language in there. I don't want the wells destroyed.
Sounds great. We can remove the condition if everyone's supportive of that.
Seeing nodding heads around. Commissioner Kelly.
I just wanted to mention again that this area that we're under discussion, there are only 2 subject properties that don't have water. They can get water, and it's these 2. And the city is committing to go through an annexation process. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that it's going to be successful or unsuccessful until we speak with the folks and go through a formal process. I think there's other reasons for them to connect besides water or to be part of the city, including representation. So right now our city council struggles to get enough people to serve, and same with our planning commissions. And I happen to know several of the residents in this area who are very vocal and I think would like a seat at the table. And so that's a benefit to them, as well as other coverage that we can provide as a city. So I'd like a chance to sit down and talk to them about that. I think I like the well idea, but I agree with Commissioner Bushnell that we should leave it out for now. Or that I agree with her that we should put that language in. I think the discussions that we get into about whether or not the city has disruptions in service or what kind of water service we can provide and so forth really should rely on the reports that have been provided. So that's it. I think I'll just say again that I think these folks deserve the water. They've been working on this for years, and we are fully supportive. So
Great. Thank you for that. I have one more question for Ms. Pierce, if you might come back up, please. Yeah, so these shallow wells are pretty common around West Haven, North Trinidad area because of the clay hard pans, as you mentioned. But in many cases, they have hired well drillers to come in and have successfully drilled wells at 100 to 200 feet. That's a deep well, but they have been successful. Have you guys ever tried to drill a deeper well?
We have not. When we had fish drilling come out, they said that it looked like the place that we had the well was the most optimum place, and they couldn't dig further in that spot because it could destroy their equipment because of the well that had been hand dug.
Okay.
There.
Okay. Yeah, because I do know that the quarry operations absolutely have effects on that shallow water table, but less so on the deeper water tables. And in fact, when they've done the... What was the problem?
This is
I'm
my
sorry.
phone. I'm sorry.
Your phone.
Oh.
I
I thought I silenced it. Thank you.
I thought it was elevator music.
She's running away. Well, a little levity is good because this is an important issue. I agree with Mayor Kelly. You know that. I mean, I think we all can associate with wanting to have good, reliable water supply. I don't think there's any disagreement up here with any of that. I think what I and others are struggling, some others are struggling with is this idea of being presented as an anticipation of annexation. And as Commissioner Kelly said, there's no guarantee. And she's not trying to present it as it will definitely happen or it won't happen. It's a question. But from what I've heard from talking to people that live there and was stated by one of the applicants here today, there is pretty strong feelings that it is highly unlikely to occur. None of us will know until the city's able to put out its pros and cons and all that stuff and go through the process. But I have a problem with it being presented to us today as this anticipation, and I don't think that's accurate. So that's my biggest problem with this whole thing, frankly speaking.
Regardless of anticipation for annexation,
Yeah.
I feel like we have done the due diligence of
Yes.
the process
Yeah, you
of
have.
doing all of the steps that we need to do to get to that point.
Agreed.
So-
You're the two people that have said we won't protest annexation.
So whether or not we're annexed, I feel like you could still make a decision today about whether we could easily just be hooked up for our welfare.
yeah, understand.
And we do have Mr. Kavanaugh has his hands
Great.
raised.
I thought he might want to come back too. Thank you very much, Ms. Pierce. And Mr. Kavanaugh, you're back on. You're unmuted, and you wanted to speak. Please go ahead.
Yes, it sounds to me that there might be just a little bit of confusion on the annexation. As far as always, the annexation process that we were working under years ago and in years since was annexing the whole tract of land, that whole neighborhood. And now, as I understand it, we're looking at annexing individual parcels.
No, that's not. It is the whole tract.
Oh, well, that'll never happen. Oh, well, I could have saved a lot of time and money had that been the case. I was presented with the fact that it would be individual properties that would be annexed.
I do want to, so I want to clarify. So for purposes of the agreement between the two property owners and the city, these two property owners are requesting annexation of the city. So they are applying to the city and requesting it. The city can't turn around and apply to LAFCo to annex two parcels that are not
Contiguous with the city boundaries.
contiguous with the city limits.
Yeah.
And so in order to make a contiguous annexation area, the entire neighborhood has to move forward. So the agreement, the request for annexation for these two property owners would occur within a year, and they would be providing a $5,000 deposit to support that, to support the city moving forward with annexation exploration and moving forward with an annexation planning process, but it would take the broader neighborhood.
Great. Okay. Thanks for that clarification. Is that understood, Michael?
Yep, I got it. Thank you.
Okay. And while you're on, could I ask you, have you ever had a drilling company drill for a deeper well?
No, I have not. Again, it was always a money issue, and through most of my time there, and that was very expensive.
Understood. Yeah. And there's no guarantee from the well drilling company that they're going to actually provide you with a well, although they don't put in the casing if it didn't turn out good when they did the soil profiles and drilled. What's observed up at the quarry just above you and above the pierces is that as they dynamite and dig into these what are old sea stacks, big, really hard rock for the coast. There's not a lot of hard rock on the coast, but these old sea stacks, they actually have roots, so to speak, that go very deep. And as they've dynamited and gone deeper and deeper, every one of those holes is full of water. So there is this really saturated water table up there that is observed when they do their quarry operations and stuff. So it seems to me that there probably is water deeper, but it is an investment with a risk as well. So anyway, we've talked about different alternatives. You know, a 5,000 gallon tank, I think the Pierces in the staff report, it talked about what the normal amount of use would be, but then it said, but the Pierces only use X amount, which was substantially less. I think it was 450 gallons a day for two people versus 150 gallons a day for the Pierces, which is true for most of us. We don't use 450 gallons a day for 2 people typically, unless you're watering your driveway every day or something else. But at that level, 150 gallons a day, if you do the math, a 5,000 gallon tank will last you over a month for 2 people. So it's a substantial backup plan, just like the keeping the wells are a backup plan and things like that. And in our area with the city, outside the city, we're absolutely as a community looking at these resiliency measures that we can take as a community, regardless of what pipelines may or may not be there, to literally have water supply at our own residence, and they can be tied in with rainwater collection and other things. At any rate, we've discussed this at length. One final question from Commissioner Bush now.
Thank you. So I know that on this road, there are empty lots, and so new construction wouldn't be considered, and they would have to find their own water sources to have construction done through the county. What is to prevent, if annexation doesn't happen in the future, these homes get built and they have the same issues, that we're not piecemealing that whole road together?
Our policy distinguishes between development related and non-development related. And I mean, they could request city water, and it goes first to the city, whether they would support new development requests and building out within a non-city area. They have limited water supply. And so my sense is it's not in their best interest to continue to connect parcels outside of the city within their water service area, and build out areas outside of the city. I think the priority is within city limits. And so I think that's also part of the discussion with the community. I mean, there are the property owners within this sub area within the neighborhood that, you know, it would benefit them to be annexed to the city if they ever did want to develop. But unless that occurs, you know, my message to the community, if I, you know, was the city, would be, or to those property owners, is annexation is your best path forward to, if you ever want to develop these parcels.
So
can to city water.
Can I clarify then that undeveloped lots beyond these 2 homes are not within the sphere of influence? Is that what you're saying?
They are, because, you know, to make they're sprinkled.
Okay, so that's my question.
They are within the sphere of influence to support any annexation of the entire neighborhood.
So if they say they build next year and they develop a water system, whether it be a well or a spring box or whatever they do, in the future, if those wells, spring boxes go dry, similar case, and annexation doesn't happen, you're hearing both the neighbors say annexation's never going to happen. You also just stated that Trinidad has a limited supply of water, which is odd when you're considering annexation, because it would increase their water usage. And those new homeowners, say, developed a system, then their wells go dry, and they come back to this LAFCo one at a time to hook them up out of annexation. What would be our path?
Yeah, I mean,
if we approve this today,
you know, being within the county, those development permits, you know, they would need to. You're right. Get the on-site water, you know, get the wells and develop their on-site systems. You would hope that, you know, current regulations would develop systems, but you never know if they would go dry in this area. I mean, Chair Madrone may be able to speak to that more. I mean, would they drill deeper wells?
I mean, I have my answers according to what's going on there now with water availability. I just am very leery of setting precedent and not being successful in an annexation process, which is dependent on the community, and then going forward piecemealing it together. And, you know, it just concerns me. Not that I don't want you folks out there to have water, the 2 that have, you know, nothing's worse than not having water for your home. There's nothing worse.
Agreed.
And
I think. Oh, sorry.
I just don't want to set us. I don't want to set this LAFCo up for making decisions based on this when annexation is the path forward, and we've heard that. That's everything I've been taught for LAFCo since I've been on the board.
And this policy, you know, is written into state law for these circumstances. And, you know, to provide, and it's on a case by case basis, and it's looking at local conditions and circumstances. I absolutely understand about setting precedent. We do receive these requests every other year, it seems like, for either the city of Trinidad or Blue Lake, especially. And but we continually say we want to see annexation. So we are discouraging these, but ultimately, I think that reliable water supply on a case-by-case basis for property owners and considering this is something that today we feel, and our recommendation is to approve this.
Great. Commissioner Kelly.
Sorry, just one
That's
last
okay.
thing. So I think, what's going to happen potentially between these two water hookups and any further development in that area and a request for a water service hookup would be this discussion about annexation. So then when those service hookups came before LAFCo or the city first, the city probably wouldn't agree if we've just gone through an annexation process and everyone has said no. It wouldn't make a whole lot of sense. So I think that's kind of sandwiched in the middle. The other thing is, I don't feel like we're bending the rules here. I feel like we're using them as intended. LAFCO exists to kind of balance, flexibility of planning, and I think it's, limiting water connections without, annexation is part of the framework, but that's why the framework exists. So I think, and I am personally not concerned looking at the data that the city of Trinidad will have an issue providing water in this situation. I mean, we're not so constrained on water that we couldn't provide this to. When we looked at the build out, we looked at the build out of all of the available parcels within the sphere of influence. So I don't see that as an issue at all.
Great. Thank you for that, Commissioner Benzanelli.
Question. So is there any way we could add language that said something?
Microphone.
Whoops. Is there any way we could add language that said something like, that included something like historic or water systems prior to LAFCo development or something like that would restrict this next step and next step and next step for new developed properties? Because what Commissioner Bushnell says is it would almost only be fair if we were able to allow this and then somebody built next door and had a well and the well failed. Well, how come them and not us? Unless we put something in there now that says this was a historic water system that was developed previous to LAFCO establishment or something like that.
We could look at, I'm sensing there's an interest of this commission to bring back the policy and have a study session on the out-of-agency policy in general, so we can all really make sure that it reflects both meets the state requirements, but also reflects the local conditions and circumstances and the policy of this commission. So we could look at that on a policy level. With this, as of right now, the law requires that any new connections come before LAFCO out of district or out of city, and so I don't know. We would have to look into whether it would be appropriate to include language with regard to any on-site systems, restricting it at that level. Each of these would come to before LAFCO, before connection is made for any area.
So it seems obvious to me at this point that we've got three possible actions that could be taken today. One would be approval, one with the condition of the well, the backflow preventer, that kind of thing, or denial, or continuance to allow for that study session to happen before we made a final decision.
I personally don't think we need to hold this for that study session.
Okay.
This is just, that to me is just a broader.
Okay.
It's been quite a few years since, maybe even 5 years since the commission has sat and looked at this policy and really digested it. And I think there's some other policy updates. It's a priority that I have this year is to bring some policy updates forward, including incorporation policy. So we could start doing some broader, comprehensive policy review.
Very good. Appreciate that. On annexation, it's not that everybody has to deny it for it to fail. What is the process? Isn't it just a small percentage?
So, once the area is determined by the city and they do the outreach, ultimately what triggers it would be 25% of the registered voters or 25% of the landowners owning 25% of the assessed value of land. And
In the annexation area.
within the annexation area, that would trigger an election. And then it would go before the voters at a regularly scheduled election or maybe a special election. The question would be annexation or not, and it would be majority voter approval.
Okay. So it doesn't require everybody to deny.
No, it does
It's
not.
25% or up to 50.
Oppose annexation.
So-
Yes, it doesn't require everyone
So ultimately, it would require 51% or 50% plus one
to
to
terminate.
deny.
Yes.
For it to fail. Yeah. So half the people. Okay. Appreciate that. And if this annexation were to occur, you talked about the city's coastal development plan. Now, this area is outside the coastal zone, correct?
These two parcels are, but I would have to look at the overall sub area that would be this neighborhood for annexation. And my sense is there's a portion of it that may be within the coastal zone. So for purposes, they would have to, if I can't say for sure, but I believe there would be a local coastal program amendment.
Does the city currently, Commissioner Kelly, does the city currently have any areas outside the coastal zone in its city limits? Like Berry Lane, for instance?
Yes, Berry Lane might be. It's a good question because it's like 99% is in the coastal zone,
Right.
but there are some outliers.
Yeah, well, just like the
And
county.
I don't know that
we
any
have
of
coastal
this
zone
is-
and we have non-coastal zone.
Right.
Everything we do, we have to do
Ours
two
is
ordinances for all of that. But yeah, that's interesting. I mean, one of the properties is right at the beginning at the corner of Quarry and Mill Creek, and the other's at the very end.
Right.
So they kind of encapsulate the entire neighborhood. But then there's the west side of the road and the east side of the road. So, at any rate, okay. Well, that's simply not in front of us today either. And I was trying to look at this map and see if there's a line for the coastal zone boundary here. It is kind of strange in the West Haven Trinidad area. Actually, it's just kind of a line that runs through the forest. It doesn't actually follow a property boundary.
I mean, there is. So there is. I don't know. I would want to make sure that this is up to date and accurate. I believe it is, and that it would show that some of these could potentially be in the coastal zone. The ones on the south side, right? So, but they're not the subject parcels.
Right. No.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, because they're both on the
They're up
north or east side.
on the outside of the line.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, packet page 26 does show the coastal zone.
Oh, it does. Okay.
That dotted line.
Yeah, dotted line. And so about a quarter, maybe 30% of what I would consider.
Oh, the dashed line.
Yes, that big dash line.
Yeah, look at that.
So
right.
yeah, it kind of splits that area.
Right, and both these parcels would be outside the
They
coastal
are,
zone
yes.
based on that map, whereas the few at the very beginning of Quarry Road would be in the. Okay, yeah, exactly. It's just a weird line that runs through the forest. Okay, very good. Thanks for pointing that out. Okay, we've talked this to quite a degree. Appreciate everybody's input, and again, I appreciate the landowners being here today. So at this point, I'm looking for a motion for us to be able to proceed one way or the other.
All right, I'd be willing to make a motion I would make a motion to adopt the draft resolution identified as attachment F, approving the request with the recommended conditions along with any desired changes as requested by members. And in this case, I believe one of the desired changes was not to mandate the well removal, but rather to work with the county to see what would be involved in retaining those wells with backflow protection for agricultural use.
Great.
that
Okay.
make sense?
Appreciate that. And do we have a second?
I will second that. I will second that.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. We've had plenty of discussion. So if we can do a roll call vote, please.
All right. Commissioner Weinreb,
Aye.
Commissioner Kelly,
Aye.
Commissioner Couch,
Yes.
Commissioner Benzanelli,
No.
Commissioner Bushnell.
So I'm going to do a yes vote, but I do want to state that it's for health and safety issues that I'm basing my yes vote on.
And then Chair Madrone.
No. So I believe it passes 4-2.
You would be correct.
Great. Thank you. Okay. So, yeah, we're going to take a 5 to 7 minute break for, yeah, that was a long item. And so we'll be back in session here at 10:52 or so. Okay. Thank you.
I don't know if it's in the system or it's a real noise.
A shredder.
which is only
Partially.
It's just about ready to go on me. I know it. It's just one step. Every now and then I go, shit, my knee.
Let's go ahead and get started here. Okay, great. Thank you, everybody, for your fortitude here.
Page.
Oh, let's see.
Going to turn on our mic. Okay, we are back in session once again, and we are on item number 8, informational and continuing items. And we have 8A, Form 700, ethics and fiscal training requirements.
All right, this is the second reminder for these items. Form 700 due April 1st, the annual filing. So I do have a table in here. We have a few additions since this came out. So Mike Wilson got his Form 700, Commissioner Kelly got hers, and alternate Commissioner Johnson, we received his as well. So
Ours are done by a clerk of the board and provided to you.
yes.
Okay. for
Yes,
all
I
of
got
us.
I got the counties through the
Okay,
clerk
not
of the
just
board.
Mike's, but all
Yeah.
of us. Good.
Yes.
It's like, wait.
Are you sure you don't have ours? I thought Rob
Last
said,
year's we received yours. It's an annual filing, so a new one is due by April 4th.
I know that. I did it a few weeks ago, and I thought our clerk of the board said that they were.
Gonna send it out.
I thought they were gone a couple weeks ago. So
I will.
In process.
I can just email them.
thanks, appreciate it.
Did you email me one too?
Yes.
And then on that, also, can you I did my, the ethics training, which I sent to you, but can you, if the board is interested, send that link out again?
Yeah. Of course. Of course.
Yep, I got mine done.
So we'll just do a large email, just follow up
Right.
for all of these.
Any more on that item in regards to fiscal training requirements? Or?
There is, as reported last meeting, there is new fiscal training requirements, and that was through SB 827. There'll be California Special Districts Association, which LAFCo is a member, did a recent fiscal training, and there's going to be another one in June, I believe. And so we'll get you that information
Great,
as
thank
well,
you.
and we can help sign anyone up and get you registered for that, and it'll be free because you're a CSDA member.
Okay, great. Is that everything on that item?
Yes.
Great. Item B, status of expiring commissioner terms.
For this one, just wanted to update that the special district call for nominations went out for the 2 expiring terms, Commissioner Nicolini and alternate Commissioner Couch. Those terms are up this year, and so the call for nominations went out. And we will be receiving nominations. That deadline is May 1st. Thank you, Amber. And so if we get one nomination per seat, we won't have to do ballots. If we receive more multiple nominations for a seat, then we'll be following up the call for nominations process with mailed ballots to each independent special district. And then City Selection Committee will be a meeting in June. And then we're also going to be initiating the public member vacancy very soon, and that's to fill alternate Commissioner Johnson's seat.
Great.
With that, that's my update.
Great, thank you for that. And of course, I will be ending my term here along with my term on the Board of Supervisors on December 31st. So I'm not running for office again. I think everybody knows that. And then you're up for re-election, David, too, in November?
Yes,
And
I am running.
You are running again. Great. Glad to hear it. You've been a valuable.
Planning to apply for both the regular and the alternative.
Hey, there you go.
LAFCo. But I have to go to the board for that.
Right. Okay, great. Thank you for that update. And then item C, 8C is status of MSRs and sphere of influence updates.
We have a full administrative draft of the City of Eureka Municipal Service Review, so we're getting further along, and the next steps is coordinating with the city and in their review of that administrative draft, and then really working through any sphere changes to be included within this cycle for the city for their municipal service review and sphere of influence update. And then we're also doing the Scotia Community Services District municipal service review and coordinating with the district. They had a boil water notice recently, so they've been busy. And we will be coordinating with them more, as well as with their neighbors, City of Rio Dell, make sure that we engage with them as well for this, for their service review. And we'll be bringing that forward. Peninsula CSD will be next after this, after Scotia. And that's my report.
Great, thank you for that. And then item 8D, status of applications, projects, and coordination efforts.
All right. So for active applications, I've kind of reworked this. And so we have active applications, special studies, legislative and policy initiatives, and agency coordination. And so for active applications, we just had the City of Trinidad out of agency today. And then we will be recording the certificate of completion for the Humboldt CSD McKay Ranch annexation. So we went through the 30-day reconsideration period. We also been coordinating with the county surveyor to review the legal description. And so we'll be recording the certificate of completion and then doing the State Board of Equalization filing in the coming week. So that one should be off the list by the next meeting. Ferndale Fire Protection District, we received an application for their Goodwill response area annexation, and so we'll be doing a notice of filing to affected and interested agencies and county departments in the coming weeks as well, and initiating the property tax exchange agreement process with Humboldt County and getting that moving ahead as well. All of that will complete prior to us bringing that forward to the commission for consideration. And there'll also be a 21-day public hearing notice to those property owners and registered voters within the annexation area before the public hearing is, prior to the public hearing. For special studies, the North Coastal Fire Services study by Matrix, we are under contract. We also coordinated with Matrix to get out a data request to all of the agencies that are participating. And so we are waiting. We've already I provided Matrix what I have, like the North Bay Auto Aid Agreement and some other studies. The Arcata Fire Protection District recently did a standards of cover, so I provided that to them. And the County Service Area Agreement with CAL FIRE for the Amador, I provided that. So they have some baseline information. We also provided some call data that we had compiled for the region and all of the agencies. And so we'll be continuing on that data collection process in the coming weeks, and I'll be sending out reminders. And then Matrix is also planning to be determined, but we're looking at late April or early May for them to actually come out and visit with all of the agencies and observe the facilities and overall service area. And then with legislative and policy initiatives, the commercial timberlands, a lot's happened. There was quite a bit of coordination with Chris Rogers' office and coordinating with Assemblymember Rogers' staff about a potential bill. A draft bill language was developed, and that was modeled to follow county service area law, which allows for the inclusion of state responsibility areas within fire protection district boundaries, commercial forest lands within state responsibility areas. And so that was modeled, but Assemblymember Roger decided not to carry the bill this legislative session. We've also reached out with RCRC and even Cal Forests to review, and I provided the draft bill language. Cal Forests, Matt Diaz there, I've gotten to know him. He has both forestry and the fire protection background, so he's a great and does a lot at the state level. Working in Sacramento policy. I mean, that's what he does. And he had concerns about the draft bill language. I think he recognized that fire protection districts should be compensated for calls to commercial forest lands within the state responsibility area that are otherwise not reimbursed by the state. So he recognizes that there is a problem, which I think is the first thing is to identify that there's a problem. So that is there, but I think he has concerns about how the funding structure or how fire protection districts should be funded. I think he's recognizing that commercial timberland companies or property owners may really push back on any legislation that allows for taxation and inclusion within fire protection districts. So he was looking at and exploring whether some sort of fee structure could be put into place, and there just needs to be a lot more conversation. Based on his concerns, there's a long road ahead on this, and it's not an easy solution. It's really going to take, I think, the Cal Chiefs and the California Fire Districts Association and Cal Forests and all of the stakeholders to come together and find agreement. And it's going to be challenging, I think, to do that. So soon I really want to try to bring the various stakeholders that I've been talking to, bring them together. Hopefully Cal Chiefs will lead this moving forward. And I know it's on their radar, and I think they're going to hopefully take this as a priority moving forward and kind of pass the torch. But I'll try to just stay involved and stay coordinated. We're in a county that is very much affected by this. And so I think, just continue to support efforts, but really need to get the right players in the same room talking. And so that's what I'm going to try to do in the coming this year. And then with regard to agency coordination, lots of fire services coordination efforts, including the Mattole reorganization, including Petrolia, Telegraph Ridge, and Honeydew fire departments. That's moving forward, and other fire-related efforts. McKinleyville Incorporation exploration. There's quite a bit happening there. So the exploration subcommittee, or the MEES, they were able to, they're getting support from a planning planning assistance team through American Planning Association, which is pretty cool. It's like retired planners that have their like pet projects, and this is one of the pet projects. And so they're donating time to look at, from a planning perspective, what the community needs are, what the potential boundary options would be, looking at coastal zone and outside of the coastal zone, and really starting to support the community outreach. And then Cal Poly Humboldt, they're doing an economic development study. I believe there's a community meeting coming up for that, and the MEAS and the community planning team is going to have almost like a breakout table associated with the incorporation to get community feedback. And then there's a small pot of funds that was secured to support a initial feasibility analysis, or an IFA. And so once that, they're continuing to, in coordination with the county, which is the grant recipient for that, scope that out, and then ultimately there'll be a consultant that's hired to do this initial feasibility analysis, and that should, provide more detail regarding like whether incorporation is actually feasible, and some decisions can be made of whether it should move forward in additional community outreach, because it's the community that is going to need to bring this forward, also ultimately through a petition likely. And then I have a list of recent inquiries and coordination. I try to track, what kind of agency calls calls from agencies I receive, or even members of the public, and just providing ongoing technical assistance or support. And so I won't go through all of those, but they're in the packet. I'll leave it there and available for any questions.
Great, thank you very much. Appreciate that. These updates are always really valuable to keep us all up to speed. There's so much going on that you and our limited staff do such a great job of handling. Thank you. Okay, so with that, we're going to go to item number 9, Executive Officer's Report.
I included just a couple of Cal LAFCo related items. So the first one is there was a LAFCo 101, so the basics on LAFCo, that was, I think, last month. Did anyone here? Thank you, Commissioner Benzanelli, for attending. Our staff attended, and it's always a great to learn the basics of LAFCO. And so next up is the LAFCO 201, and so it's going a bit further and applying judgment in complex decisions. And so if this is April 22nd, we can register you. Amber can help. So please reach out if you're interested in attending, 10 to 11:30.
Amber, I'm interested.
I thought that's just what we did, was making decisions in difficult
yeah,
complex.
right? Would be a good one for everyone.
Training 301. Thank you.
And then there's the staff workshop coming up May 6th through 8th, San Luis Obispo. I'll be attending that. And then the Cal LAFCO list of current bills is 9C, and I am on the legislative committee now, so I'm starting to get more knowledge of, especially from a Cal LAFCO perspective, whether they support or not support certain bills. So I'll keep you posted on those. And that's it.
Great, thank you for that. And I'm just going to give an early heads up to everybody. Because I'm ending my term, I'm not going to go to Cal LAFCO this fall, because I think it's best for one of the ongoing commissioners to attend that. And you've got funding for 2 people to go. Both Commissioner Bushnell and myself went last year with Colette. It was really wonderful. I mean, it's, as we all know, these conferences have some great information, but it's the connections that you make with other people that really are also very, very important. So please think about your ability to participate in October in Sacramento, I think you said.
Correct.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. Okay, written correspondence, item 10. Is there any?
None.
We just had the one on the
Yes,
Trinidad
yeah.
issue. Okay, and we are adjourned. Thank you very much,
I
everybody.
had
Oh,
something
excuse me. Yes.
Back on the legislative update.
Yes.
Oop. There's some interesting assembly bills dealing with public water supply and firefighting that are happening right now, and it bears watching.
Yeah, you guys had a very robust discussion on that at the CSD this last month. Yeah, and the whole Arcata fire thing and the Palisades fire, all these things are bringing forth new concerns about water providers and their liabilities and considerations, right?
Yeah, well, basically, you know, they're designed to be drinking water suppliers, and when they have to service a firefighting capacity, you know, it's trying to limit their liability because we don't necessarily have enough water for firefighting because we're not designed that way. So
Yeah.
there are bills right now in the assembly to address that.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner Couch. Any other commissioners with anything else to add? Okay, we are, go ahead.
No.
You'll do it on the side. Okay. We are adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Another reason to preserve wells.
Yeah, no kidding.